Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little subscribe button at the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, click that subscribe button. Really does help our channel grow, our audience grow, and I really do appreciate it more than you know. So click that subscribe button. Appreciate your support. Now, here's the video that you came here for.
All right, everybody. I'm back. Good to be back. So want to go ahead and get to some late breaking news on a player, a person, a recruitment that we have discussed quite a bit here on the Aaron Torres Pod and Aaron Torres Pod YouTube channel over the last couple really months and frankly years. And that is the recruitment of the #1 high school player in America. I'm talking about AJ Dybantsa. Okay, so we have talked about AJ Dybantsa for years now. And really, his recruitment, I think, really picked up some steam in the springtime, into the summer, goes to EYBL. He's absolutely awesome. He had obviously reclassified a little bit over a year ago. And over the course of the summer, it felt like the recruitment picked up steam, and we kind of have been monitoring it ever since. At one point, he cuts his list to 7, takes a bunch of visits. Last week, he cut his list to 4, BYU, Alabama, Kansas, and North Carolina. Well, that recruitment is officially over. That is because just minutes ago, AJ Dybantsa, the #1 high school player in America, committed to the BYU Cougars, baby. That is right. On first take, AJ Dybantsa, #1 player in America, he is headed to BYU. Absolutely historic, unbelievable moment for BYU basketball, and obviously an incredible moment for AJ Dybantsa and his family. Congrats to him on committing to BYU. But at the end of the day, let me say this. We talk a lot about different things in the world of college basketball, the world of recruiting. We use the term program-changing recruit way too often in this business. I am here to tell you this kid is absolutely that. And let's go ahead and dive into this recruitment. By the way, as you can see, we have our Torres on BYU Twitter page specific to BYU. It's all BYU all the time. Anytime I'm talking about BYU, we're discussing it. Make sure to follow there. We have a great intern named Minty who helps me out. So make sure if you are a BYU fan, follow Torres on BYU. All right, let's go ahead and get into AJ Dybantsa. Listen, we've talked about this kid so much, but I just want to take a second to once again appreciate the player he is and the player he has become, okay? Because really, when you're talking about a high school prospect, there's a long way to go to the NBA and all-star this and all that. But at the same time, who he is and who he's become, he's really one of the more remarkable high school players I've ever seen. Really has every single tool. Like, I've been doing this a long time, and I was really thinking about it. There are kids that are super athletic. There are kids that are super skilled. There are kids that are elite offensively. There are kids that are elite three-point shooters. There are kids with elite instincts. Rarely do you see a prospect that has all of them wrapped into one. That's AJ Dybantsa, okay? 6'8", plays both ends of the court, super athletic, can shoot, mid-range game, obviously can finish at the rim, defends his butt off. Again, he really does just about everything at a very high level as a high school basketball prospect. And I was thinking about this, knowing that he was going to be committing here on Tuesday morning. I think 2 things really stand out about him in terms of just the players that I've seen in high school basketball. And I've been doing this a long time. I mean, I remember even when I first moved to California, going to an event where Julius Randle and Aaron Gordon were high school prospects. So I've been following high school recruiting for a long time. And I think there's 2 things that stand out to me about him that make him a relatively unique prospect. The first one, he really competes on both ends of the floor. Listen, we all know about the offensive talent. You can see it a mile away, not just with him, but with a lot of elite high school basketball prospects. And the thing that stands out about AJ is that oftentimes, as I've been doing this through the years, less and less, you just don't see a lot of guys that give 100% compete at the highest level on both ends of the floor. Sometimes they just choose not to. Sometimes they don't care about the defensive end. Sometimes, their value on the basketball court is in scoring the basketball. AJ, to me, and I've never talked to him, I've never interviewed him one-on-one, but it seems as though he cares just as much about being elite on defense as he is on offense, as much as shutting down the other guy as opposed to getting his. So that's the first thing that stands out to him. And then I think the other thing, he's the rare player that was really identified as an 8th, 9th grader as the potential to be elite, was ranked as high as number 1 in the class, and never really let it go. Like, that sounds like a weird thing to say, but I've been doing this for so long, and I've seen so many guys, they get that 5-star ranking, the number 1 recruit in America as an 8th grader, 9th grader, freshman in high school, sophomore in high school, and they think that's where the work stops. Or they stop, putting in the effort, or they do this or they do that, or whatever happens, and they don't develop into the player that they can become, or other guys simply pass them. I mean, I'm not going to go through the list, but think about how many guys have been ranked the number 1 high school player in America as a freshman that end up as 4 stars, as guys that never make it the NBA. AJ Dybantsa is basically been start to finish the best player in his class, and that's, of course, after reclassifying, obviously just a year ago. So he's headed to BYU. That is who he is. Now I want to talk about how he's going to fit in at BYU, because to me, this is a win for BYU. It's a win for Big 12. It's a win for college basketball. Listen, this is not to disparage BYU or anybody else, but we get so caught up. So often, all these elite players go to a Duke or a Kentucky or this or that. And I'm not saying a player shouldn't go wherever they think is best for them. But to have somebody do something different like a BYU, it's so cool. He's obviously playing his senior year of high school basketball at Utah Prep. And let's say this is a major win for Kevin Young, who has obviously arrived and really been, what's the right way to put it? He's been a disruptor really at the college basketball level. Everybody knows his background, but for people who forget, the new BYU coach replaced Mark Pope in April of last year, came from the NBA. And basically, you know what he said? He said, why not BYU? He said, why not BYU? Why can't we build this place into a power at the college basketball level? And I had him on the show over the course of the summer. We're going to get to some sound that he had in a minute. But I really love the way that he laid it out. He said, we have everything you need to compete at the highest level, so why wouldn't I take this job? Remember, Kevin Young was a guy who was interviewing for NBA head coaching jobs. You can go back and find the stories, the articles. Woj wrote up an article about, I think it was the 76ers or the Brooklyn Nets or somebody. I can't remember who. Doesn't really matter to me. I'm not really an NBA guy. Whatever. The point I'm trying to make is that you look at Kevin Young, he's a guy that could be on an NBA sideline right now, could be a head coach, but he wanted this BYU job. And what I respect is he came there with a vision on what it could be. I think a lot of guys, at any point, but certainly the guys that come from the NBA, I think sometimes they just say, I'm from the NBA. I know the X's and O's. I'll figure it out. I'll be fine. And it's like they don't really have a plan once they get there. And what I love about when I talked to Kevin Young, he laid out that plan. He said there are 3 things that I believe make this a place that I can be successful and a place that is going to put me in position to be successful, kind of a symbiotic thing. What did he say? If you remember, he said, first off, listen, I do think I have that NBA background. I can go into kids' homes and sell them a vision. It's not hypothetical. I think that was the exact term that he used, actually. He said, it's not hypothetical. He said, I've coached Kevin Durant. I've coached Devin Booker. I know what it looks like, and I know the work you have to do to get to I know the work that you have to put in to get there. And more importantly, I am the guy that can help you make that happen. And so listen, you look at BYU, to Kevin Young's credit, he has delivered so far. BYU 6-2. Their only losses were to Ole Miss in overtime. Ole Miss is a really good team, okay? Ole Miss's only loss was to Purdue on a buzzer beater. You lose to Ole Miss in overtime, then you got to fly cross country, play Providence, whatever. But listen, they are playing exactly the way that he said they were going to play in the offseason. He said, we're going to play an NBA style, spacing, ball movement, three-point shooting, and he has delivered. BYU is currently top 30 in the country in scoring. They're currently top 30 in the country in three-point attempts, currently top 30 in the country in three-point makes. Yegor Demin has gone from kind of this novelty that nobody's quite sure what to make of him to now somebody that people are talking about is the legitimate number 1 pick of the 2025 NBA draft. Now, I don't think he's going to surpass Cooper Flagg, and that's not a knock on Yegor. It's just how good Cooper Flagg is, how good Ace Bailey is. But we're probably talking about Yegor Demin after 3 months in Kevin Young's offense as a guy that is going to be a top 5 pick in this draft. So he said, I have the system. He said, we're playing in the Big 12. He said the Big 12, in my opinion, is the best conference of college basketball. Now, we talked to him in August. Obviously, you could argue, has the SEC for the 2025-26 season or 2024-2025 season surpassed them? It doesn't really matter. He said, listen, great players want to play against the best competition, and that's what you have the chance to do when you come to BYU. So come here. You get to play in an NBA system for an NBA head coaching staff. We talked about it at the time. It's not just Kevin Young, NBA strength, NBA conditioning, NBA meal prep, NBA everything. It's kind of interesting, right? Because Bill Belichick actually said that on Pat McAfee on Monday about what he would do if he went to college. He said, I'd bring an NFL model, NFL training, NFL meal, NFL this, NFL that. That's basically what Kevin Young did. It's not just him. It's his nutrition staff, his strength staff. Then he also has the Big 12 to sell. Hey, come here. We're going to play Kansas. We're going to play Houston. We're going to play Iowa State. We are going to play the best teams in college basketball. And then finally, the third part, let's call a spade a spade. It's NIL. NIL is a thing right now. And I have a lot of thoughts on, the role that NIL may or may not have played in this recruitment. But since everybody's got an opinion on BYU, everyone's got an opinion and has heard a thing and read a rumor on Reddit or a message board, let's hear what Kevin Young had to say about the NIL setup at BYU, because even he admits it is part of the recruiting pitch, even if it isn't all of the recruiting pitch. Producer Matt, play the sound.
The NIL piece is what we've, and when I say we, our collective has been able to do is they've just been able to help us be competitive with the other schools in the country.
Sure.
So there isn't a deficit from other schools in the country to BYU. We're on the same playing field, and I give our guys credit for that. That's basically what has happened. It's been like
So that was Kevin Young on BYU's NIL situation. And first of all, he talked about the three-pronged approach. That's what I just said. NBA style and coaching staff playing in the Big 12, but also NIL. And what I'll tell you really quick, I will give you my personal perspective, what I believe has happened over the last, really 6 months, right? Since the spring and summer. Listen, we'd all be naive to say that NIL doesn't play a role in virtually every commitment, especially of high-level high school basketball and football players. Like, it just is what it is. There's no denying it, whatever. What I would also say, first of all, I don't believe that BYU had the highest NIL offer. I believe there was another school that was higher. We've talked about it on previous episodes. Today's not the day to have that conversation. You can go back in the archives and look. But two, and this to me is important, I do think that NIL was not the only factor. Everyone, listen, I can already read the comment. Comments haven't even started yet, and I already know what the comments are saying. The comments are saying, Torres, they just paid the butt. But here's the thing. We've talked about it. NIL is important. But AJ Dybantsa, if he plays this correctly, if he keeps developing, if he has a little injury luck, whatever, he could make $500 million playing college basketball. Or playing basketball, not college. But if he made it in college basketball, that'd be different. But he can make $500 million by the end of his career. I mean, if he plays until he's 35, 36, 37, 15, 18, 20 years in the NBA, 2 max contracts. I mean, this guy could make $500 million. We've talked about it before. Jason Tatum over the summer signed an extension. In the final year of his extension is going to pay him $70 million for 1 season of basketball. And so I bring it up because I've been consistent, not only with AJ Dybantsa, but with a lot of players in this class. Everybody wants to talk about NIL. I am here to tell you, I can name you 5 guys in this class, in the top 10, top 15, who I don't believe took the highest NIL bid in their recruitment. Now, the school they might have committed to is competitive. The school they've committed to isn't getting them for nothing. But a lot of these kids are seeing the forest through the trees, are realizing that if I do make a decision solely based on money, it's only going to cost me in the long run. Because in the long run, I can make $500 million over the course of my career. I could make even more. I could as a fringe NBA player make $100 million if I stick around the league for 10 years as a role player. So why would I take an extra million, an extra 1.5 million to play college basketball? Go to the place that is going to set me up, going to develop me for the future. And that's what I believe has happened with AJ Dybantsa. lastly, because we're going long here and we got a full episode of the Aaron Torres pod here coming up in just a little bit. But I just bring it up to say that, I just think this is such a cool moment as I kind of led this segment for college basketball, because again, I don't mean to belabor the point. I've been doing this a long time. We've had so many conversations about Kentucky. We've had so many conversations about Duke and Kansas and Louisville and UConn and whoever. We haven't had a ton about BYU until Kevin Young got there. And what I think is so cool about this Kevin Young thing, and we just talked about it a minute ago, he came to BYU and said, why not us? And what I truly believe, we are seeing a college basketball power emerge in front of our eyes. BYU has everything you need to compete at the highest level. They have the coaching staff. They're in the right league. The NIL setup is good. And Kevin Young has basically said, come here. We'll help you become a pro. He's already done it with Yegor Demon. We talked about him. He's going from a novelty, I think a guy that people thought could potentially be a lottery pick, he's going to be a top 5 pick in this next NBA draft. Cannon Catchings was committed to Purdue. I think he realized maybe my timeline is a little bit faster than Purdue's. I have a chance to be pretty good, pretty fast, and I don't need to stay here for 3 or 4 years. He's going to be a first-round pick this year. You look at some of the other things Kevin Young has done. Thought he was very effective in the portal. Keba Keita, a couple of the guys that they brought in over the summer. You know who I love on this BYU team, by the way? Milo Boskovic, the kid that came very late in the process from overseas. And so you look at it. Overseas players, Yegor Demon, Milo Boskovic, the high school players, the portal players. Kevin Young he's doing it all. He's got it's a weird thing to say, but he's got tentacles everywhere because of his background. He's got ties to Europe. He's got ties to high school. He's got ties to the portal. And I just think as long as this guy's going to be there, BYU is in very good hands. And when I say as long as he's going to be there, he's going to be there a long time. But I think BYU is in very good hands. And I truly believe that they're an emerging power. And I think the AJ Dybantsa recruitment and commitment proves it. There is no player going forward that is going to be off the board for BYU. Now, they got to continue to do their part. They got to win this year with Yegor Demon. They got to win next year with AJ Dybantsa. But if AJ Dybantsa pops and he ends up being the number 1 pick in the draft, like we all expect him to be, I think the sky is the limit, and BYU is hitting the ground running saying, why not come here? Why not be a part of what we're doing? Because we have a chance to make you a great player, and you can be a great team in the process. So congrats to AJ Dybantsa. Congrats to First Take for getting the big scoop. And congrats to BYU fans. I know it is a very special day. Enjoy it. And do me a quick favor. Make sure to follow our Torres on BYU page for late breaking news and notes. By the way, we got a full episode of the Aaron Torres pod coming up here in just a few hours. We will have more on this commitment. Appreciate everybody listening.